Okay, class, today we're going to learn about imaginary numbers. Yes, we still have to learn about them even though they're not real because this is trigonometry and that is what happens. Now, anybody, because I know everybody wants to know what an imaginary number is. Nope. Be quiet. Now, imaginary number is simply a negative number underneath a radical. Now, we all remember radicals? Of course not. It's only our last unit, guys. Okay. You can never have a negative number underneath your radical. It's imaginary. So we give I the symbol for imaginary numbers.
You're the symbol for an imaginary number?
No, I.
So you're an imaginary teacher then?
Not I as in me, not I as in the organs you can barely see out of. I, the letter in the alphabet.
Does that mean I can leave then?
No. Now more specifically, we give I the value of -1 in your radical. So, if you get -16 underneath the radical, you break that up into +16 underneath the radical and -1 underneath the radical. Now, 16 in your radical breaks to 4, and -1 under the radical becomes I. So your answer is 4I. Moving on, powers, not Superman, with imaginary numbers. The first exponent we're going to talk about is I to the 0. Anybody have a guess? Didn't think so. I to the 0 is equal to 1. Now, analogy. Jenna, you got a 0 on your last test, and you're the only one. Okay, next exponent is I to the 1st. Anybody want to take a shot at it? Of course not. I to the 1st is equal to I itself. Anything to the 1st power is always going to be itself. Analogy. Jenna, you're the only one who doesn't get this, and unfortunately for you, you're yourself. Okay, next exponent is I squared or I to the 2nd. Now, does anybody even want to raise their hand to take a shot at it? Come on, guys, this is honors. I to the 2nd is equal to -1. Now, we know this because I was given the value -1 under the radical. Now, I squared would be -1 under a radical times -1 under a radical. The radicals cancel, and you're left with -1. Analogy time. Jenna, you had 2 friends, but then they got to know you and left. So now you're a negative loser. Okay, our last power that we're going to explain is I to the 3rd, or I cubed. Now, I cubed is... I don't know why I turn around. I cubed is equal to -I. Analogy. Jenna, when you count to 3, your brain hurts, and you get negative brain cells. Okay, now some times for examples. Now, what do you do if you see I to the 12th?
Solve it.
That's what you should do, but what you do is run around the classroom crying, pulling your hair out, acting like a bunch of crazy baboons because you have no idea how to solve it. But yes, if you were going to solve it, this is what you do. Now let's go back to over here and let's count, which we all remember from kindergarten, I hope. How many exponents did I teach you? Apparently we can't even do that. 4 exponents we explained in detail. 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So if we get an exponent that we don't know what to do with, we simply divide by 4. Now I to the 12th, we take 12, divide by 4, we get a nice number 3. But we have to remember that there is a 0 remainder. So what that 0 tells us is we use the whole number 3 in this case as our exponent. So I to the 12th is equal I to the 3rd, which is equal to -I going back here. Now let's do another one that doesn't come out so nicely. I to the 15th. What do we divide 15 by? Come on, guys, I just said it. 4. We divide 15 by 4. Now, we get 3.75. Since there's no 0 in the remainder, there's 0.75. We have to look at that number now. 0.75 tells us to use the exponent 3. So I to the 15th goes to I to the 3rd, which equals...
-I.
Oh my gosh! Okay, now here's a simple way to remember it. 0.0 in your answer after dividing by 4 gives us the whole number is the exponent. 0.25 tells us the new power is 1. 0.5 tells us the new power is 2, and 0.75 tells us the new power is 3. Now you all must be wondering, what do we do if we see 4? Because it's so close to 3, but yet we didn't go over it. What we do when we see 4 is we count it like it's I to the 0th. Even though I know you all are jumping out of your seats to tell me 4 divided by 4 is 1. But we count it as I to the 0th, which equals...
What?
Oh my gosh! So therefore, I to the 4th is equal to 1.
I actually get this.
Don't sass me. Detention! Get out! Now class. Oh. Well, that's enough for today.